Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new WBA Executive Chat. And today's guest is Vijay Nagarajan, Vice President, Wireless Communications and Connectivity Division at Broadcom. And Vijay is one of the champions and leaders of Wi-Fi 6E. Welcome, Vijay. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Tiago. Thank you so much. Thanks for your kind introduction. Definitely appreciate it. I'd like to call myself the chief cheerleader for Wi-Fi 6E sometimes. So your description fits well with that charter.
Fantastic. And now that you mentioned Wi-Fi 6E, will be fantastic to get your views on what is happening around the world with 6E.
Excellent, excellent, and definitely, I'm very excited about Wi-Fi 6E, and 2021 especially has been fantastic for Wi-Fi 6E and 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi in general, right? And for us at Broadcom, we're pretty proud to be an integral part of this history in the making. The momentum of on 6 gigahertz has been twofolds. One is regulatory, and the other is product ecosystem. On the regulatory front, the support for 6 gigahertz unlicensed access has been moving like an unstoppable juggernaut. We now have about 41 countries that have rules in place for 6 gigahertz access, unlicensed access, and then another 75 that are looking very seriously at such rules. To put this in perspective, countries that make up 54% of the world's GDP have actually opened up 6 gigahertz for Wi-Fi, and another 18 are looking to designate as band zone. You can imagine the economic opportunity that this presents globally. So that's just significant on the regulatory front, and it's complemented quite well on the product side as well, right? So as you are aware, Broadcom launched a full suite of 6E products back in 2020, spanned phones, routers, enterprise access points, carrier gateways. And this year, those chips have started finding their ways into your homes and palms as our partners have been introducing devices with those chips. First thing this year, Samsung launched the world's first Wi-Fi 6E smartphone, the Galaxy S21 Ultra. This was powered by our 4389 chip. We also had top-of-the-line Wi-Fi 6E routers from Asus and Netgear launched earlier this year as well. Other customers have announced launch plans. Actually, more importantly, Tiago, we're seeing a very vibrant, diverse ecosystem of chips and products in the market. I think that's significant. We have Wi-Fi 6E TVs today. Enterprise-grade Wi-Fi 6E access points have been launched. And this momentum will only continue, right? As we move forward, you're going to see more enterprise Wi-Fi devices hit the market, Wi-Fi 6E devices hit the market, more phones too, carrier gateways as well. Pretty much a full ecosystem will hit the market later in the year. And as for us, I would say we're pretty happy in enabling this broad ecosystem. It's been like a five-year journey, right? And you've been with us as well, Tiago. 5-year journey to do regulatory work, standardization, product planning. It took a lot from a lot of us in the industry to bring this together. And it's a matter of pride for us that we're able to bring this ecosystem connected by Broadcom.
No, it's fantastic to see Wi-Fi 6E becoming a reality. Let's be honest, is the biggest transformation in Wi-Fi for probably a dozen of years.
That's right.
Compared with the previous versions. Maybe interesting to get your views in terms of what are the most relevant use cases that this new technology will enable. So for all of us, not only as consumers, but maybe for the companies that we work for, because there is a lot that Wi-Fi 6E can enable.
For sure. I think to answer this question, we should step back and look at what 6 gigahertz band brings to the table in the first place, right? So we get up to 1200 megahertz of contiguous spectrum for Wi-Fi, which Wi-Fi did not have previously, right? This means a couple of things for Wi-Fi 6E. One, this pristine spectrum, and two, larger bandwidth, right, with 160 megahertz and so on. Now, a 6 gigahertz operation requires hardware changes. We will only have newer Wi-Fi 6E devices in this band. And what does that do? That really allows us to make full use of benefits like OFDMA, that Wi-Fi
Yeah.
6 broadband. So being able to use those multi-user communication techniques is very, very powerful. Now, together with wider bandwidths, this really helps us in getting top speeds, multi-gigabit speeds to your mobile devices, millisecond latencies, and larger network capacity. And the larger bandwidth is particularly interesting for these enterprise deployments because they have 7 non-overlapping 160 megahertz channels. What does that mean? Much higher throughput for your enterprise deployments that are already building on the stability that OFDMA brings to the table.
Yeah.
Um, so those are benefits of 6 gigahertz. And what does that mean in terms of use cases and deployments, right? And I see it 4 vectors. One is next generation mobile use cases that require faster and lower latency Wi-Fi. Think gaming, think video, think AR, VR, right? 2 is complementing 5G.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 6E, as you know, they match up quite well to some of the IMT 2020 requirements. This means that as we are rolling out cellular 5G, we're actually realizing the use cases envisioned for 5G, and we call it 5G services through Wi-Fi 6E. 3, of course, is the enterprise deployments, as I talked about earlier. And 4 is complementing broadband, right? As our appetite for data really, really grows, broadband technologies are upgrading to become, multi-gigabit capable. And what brings them to your hands? It's Wi-Fi 6E. Whether it's a single device installation or a mesh system deployment, Wi-Fi 6E will bring this broadband to your hands. And as we look ahead beyond Wi-Fi 6E, Tiago, these KPIs are only going to get better because we'll be making use of 320 megahertz. We'll have
Yeah.
latency enhancements, all of which come in for Wi-Fi 7. So very interesting times ahead for us.
Yeah, one of the areas that for me is fascinating, especially in WBA, that we have many carriers, is the ability for the carriers not only to upgrade their backhauls and the broadband access, but the enormous opportunity for innovation. Like you said, it can be a gaming, but can be remote education, can be even remote type of work services. It can be AR, VR experiences in our houses. So it gives the opportunity for the carriers. For many years, they could innovate in services, but probably the bandwidth was and the latency was almost a limitation. 6C
Right.
breaks all those rules, and basically, man, it's up to them now to put more pipes and enlarge the pipe, and they can provide more services.
Yep, you hit the nail on its head. It's up to the creative types with the service providers to do, let their creativity run wild, and you can provide all the services that you need, right? I mean, AR, VR, you hit on that point as well. Now, these new classes of devices, right? These AR, VR devices,
Yeah,
what do they need? They need high speed and they need low latency. Guess what? That's exactly what Wi-Fi 6E offers. I like to call it a technology marriage made in heaven, really, right?
yeah,
Between AR, VR, and Wi-Fi 6E. We've seen a lot of prevalent consumer use cases, right? You're talking gaming, and the likes of Facebook, Oculus, they've popularized gaming as a use case with AR, VR. But AR, VR can be so much more disruptive as well, for a host of socially impactful areas, Tiago, right? Telemedicine, education. Can you imagine the rich experiences that we can bring to our kids worldwide in their classrooms? Or the ability to actually provide better accessibility to doctors and treatment. I mean, these could be really, really powerful, right?
yeah. It's
Um,
it's and what I like is for all generations. I can see my grandma having a medical consultation remotely, and she can see the doctor, and she can
exactly.
talk, almost having a real life experience like a face-to-face meeting.
That's right. And then you could couple it with the fact that Wi-Fi 6E sort of complements broadband, right? And as you said, I mean, if you have the creative types coming up with newer use cases and services that can be provided in home, it not only, I mean, it benefits everybody.
Yeah.
The consumer is getting richer, use cases, and the carriers and service providers themselves are benefiting from increased ARPU. So all of this is goodness. Imagine, taking high-speed content, multiple streams of high-speed content, and being able to seamlessly transition them across the different devices in your homes. Very powerful, very,
Yeah.
very good use case.
Very use case. And I'm very enthusiastic because majority, as you mentioned before, majority of the developed countries already released the 6 gigahertz band. Their regulators and policymakers made it available. I know that many other countries will follow. Still have some way to go. But you see any roadblocks there, or is just a trend that will not stop now?
I mean, I see it as a trend that will not stop. I mean, there will be, I mean, there would be challenges, and we're working through it on a country by country basis. We'll have to make sure that all the stakeholders are appropriately taken care of and concerns addressed, and that's something that the industry is working through together. However, and if 72% of your GDP, the world's GDP wants it, I can only call it a juggernaut at the end
Yeah,
of the day.
yeah. Let me just move gears here and ask you about your opinion about the impact of Wi-Fi during this pandemic that we all lived through for the last 18 months, and the role that Wi-Fi could bring to all the citizens in the world, especially for this social impact and inclusion of people, all of us, to maintain our works, our families, and our sons to be able to study. Yeah, I would like to get your views. How impactful were Wi-Fi during this pandemic?
Tiago, thank you for asking this question. Honestly, I mean, if anything, the COVID-19 pandemic has certainly made it clear that, globally, Wi-Fi and broadband are not just luxury, right? But they're actually imperative for you to get on with your daily lives. you know all of us, we've been working from home, we've been consulting doctors virtually, ordering groceries online, and our kids do their schoolwork online, right? And not to mention all that TV content that we are watching on Netflix and Disney Plus and whatnot. All of this in the last 1.5 years, right? And I mean, I've seen many reports quantifying the impact of Wi-Fi, Tiago, right? And one particular one caught my
Yeah.
attention quite recently. Wi-Fi activity has gone up by 94% during COVID, 116% increase in upstream traffic,
Yeah.
and you know an average of 12 devices connected per home. Average, not four, not five, but 12 devices connected at home. That is the impact of Wi-Fi in sheer numbers at homes,
Yeah.
right? And as we look ahead, there's, as I said, tremendous impact on education, telemedicine, especially when we take Wi-Fi and 6 gigahertz. With more access and more connectivity, we can certainly progress not just as individual nations, but humanity as a whole. And what this needs
Yeah.
for us is Wi-Fi, stable, fast, something that completely covers our homes and elsewhere, wherever we go. But this pandemic has also exposed the stark digital divide that exists,
Yeah.
right? I mean, even for developed nations where there's reasonably good Wi-Fi, people suffer from lack of good Wi-Fi, if you may. And then there are
Yeah.
many nations and many people that don't have basic connectivity. And in fact, I'm actually happy, at least in the US, that the US government is taking the right steps, providing the right proposals as part of the American jobs plan. And
Yeah.
then FCC also, right, with their $7.17 billion broadband plan that's funded by the American Rescue Plan Act. Great step. And I feel like this is something, I mean, these types of steps, every nation and every government should consider taking. And that's important because we're all in it together, and we want to make sure that we come out of this successfully and provide basic connectivity to everybody. To that end, Tiago, by the way, I should have said this at the outset. I really commend the WBA for the World Wi-Fi Day initiative, right? This is a very noble goal to make sure that people are, you know, that you're raising awareness on the digital divide, on the fact that Wi-Fi and broadband are absolutely important. It's a noble goal, so I definitely appreciate you and WBA bringing it up. So thank you so much.
No, it's super important, Vijay. even just as you said, just to create the awareness and just take a symbolic moment that is the World Wi-Fi Day on 20th of June, just to celebrate the importance of Wi-Fi and connectivity and expose good examples of addressing the digital divide, regardless if it's a developed country like US or any other country, or even a developing country that somehow is developing programs to improve the connectivity to their citizens. Definitely, I'm very honored to be able to lead this organization and be able to celebrate World Wi-Fi Day and generate as much awareness as possible.
No, this is great. Like I said, I mean, see, at a fundamental level, Tiago, right? So Wi-Fi is like the modern day elixir. It's like water. It's like oxygen.
Yeah, yeah,
But the fact is, we assume it's always there. Most of us take it for granted, and we don't stop to think about how important it is for everybody else and what happens if there's no connectivity. We don't think about it at all, and a good portion of the world actually lacks good connectivity. And that's why I feel like an initiative like the World Wi-Fi Day and everything that you guys are doing to raise the awareness here, I think is very important, right?
could
So,
not agree more. Let's join forces and celebrate World Wi-Fi Day.
yep.
Thank you so
Uh,
much, Vijay, for your vision and insights. Was a pleasure to talk with you. Looking forward for a future session and have another chat with you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Tiago. Thank you so much. Just to close off, right? So, from a Broadcom standpoint, our tagline is connecting everything. So, in fact, it tees up quite well with your vision of sort of connect the unconnected, right? We're a
Yeah,
Wi-Fi first company, and for us, we celebrate Wi-Fi daily, and so that's what we want to proliferate Wi-Fi globally, and we celebrate it daily. And our work in 6 GHz Wi-Fi is a good proof for that, right? We'll continue to be the Wi-Fi cheerleaders. And on behalf of Broadcom, I would like to extend our heartiest support to your World Wi-Fi Day initiative and congratulate you on everything that you guys have been doing. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you, Vijay, so much for your leadership and for being a champion for Wi-Fi 6E. And you are an example for our members and for the industry. Thank you so much.